This is a quick update for our members on the recent announcement made by government on funding for supported housing. Concerns in the sector have been particularly around the extension of some of government's welfare reforms, notably the rent reduction of 1% a year for 4 years for social rents, and the rollout of capping social rents at the local housing allowance rate. Because the sector was really concerned about this, government has postponed the application of these to supported housing in particular for a year, but its recent announcement has indicated its way forward. And those main issues are that the rent reduction of 1% will be applied to supported housing from April 2017. And from 2019-20, they will start applying the local housing allowance cap to supported housing. Until then, tenants in supported housing will continue to have their full rent met through housing benefit and UC where they're eligible. From 2019 to 20, single people under 35 in supported housing will not have their rent capped at the single accommodation rate, which is great news because there's so limited alternative accommodation for them. So we welcome that. However, core rents and eligible service charges will continue to be met through housing benefit and UC, but they will be capped at the level of the local housing allowance. Now, government has acknowledged additional costs in provision of supported housing, and to meet those, it will transfer funds to local authorities to help them meet those costs. Obviously, our concerns are on how that pot will be sized and how effectively it will take into account projections of future need, and also the ring fence, which government has said there will be, of how long will that last, etc. So we will be looking for details like that in the forthcoming consultation that government's announced. In the devolution to local authorities in England, obviously the pot will go to Wales and Scotland for them to decide how they administer it. We're expecting that a consultation will cover things such as the ring fence, details about how it will ensure that that funding remains focused on supported housing and the provision of supported housing, how they will ensure future development can be funded, the issues around administration costs for local authorities, and also probably around the regulation of social housing, because we know that was an issue of concern for government in terms of ensuring quality and standards, etc. The government has indicated in Prime Minister's question time, the Prime Minister indicated that they will look in particular at impacts for refugees and maybe other short-term accommodation where it doesn't fit easily under the UC system. So it is likely that there will be exemptions from the LHA limit for refugees in particular. But again, we will hear more about that from government. So our initial reaction is that we have welcomed the exemption of supported housing for young people under 35, simply because there is limited options for them alternatively. We are concerned about a move from an entitlement-based system that meets the full costs, and so a lot of the detail about how the pot will be administered locally, the ring fence, the way funding levels will be assessed, all of those are things where we'll be looking at the detail, because that will be critical to give confidence to the sector in investing in these schemes in the long term. The risk is moving to a top-up system at local authority level is whether providers will feel confident about the long-term investment in supported housing.